I talked to my friend this weekend who's a realtor in Houston, and she told me that she was nervous and scared when she went to show a house this weekend. That's a big concern, and that's a big issue that we need to talk about today. Realtor safety. How do you show a house to a stranger that could be remote, that you're by yourself at? What steps can you take to make sure you're safe and secure doing this? Thanks for joining us, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Lieutenant Robert Henry is an honorably retired law enforcement commander from Houston with over 35 years of public service experience. I'm Daniel Ziegler. I've been asking questions all my life, and on this show, I do my best to ask the questions that the public would like to know the answer to. The SAFESECURE 360 podcast is intended to provide you, the listener, with information about current events and ongoing societal challenges to help make your life safer. Thank you for listening. This is the SAFESECURE 360 podcast. There is safety in numbers.
Real estate sales in the United States and Texas, for sure, is a big deal. Houses are being sold so quickly, and these realtors are really working hard to do that. Are they safe when they show a home to a stranger that they got a phone call from a blocked number or they don't know who they're talking to? What steps can they take to enhance their security to make them feel more comfortable and have a positive outcome when they do these open houses and showings? It's really important, and that's what we're going to talk about today in depth.
Well, thank you for talking with us, Robert. Your public service experience over 35 years in the police force and your private service experience running a security company gives you a lot of things to talk about. And so what I'd like to do today is walk through what an open house looks like, maybe some signs that realtors should be aware of, and then maybe let's talk about some ways that they could be more prepared for showing. Showing houses is part of the sale of real estate. It's part of the business. So often that's a one-on-one process that's happening. When someone sets up an interview with a new client, let's start from there. They have a new client they're going to meet. What's a good way of them to get to feel out the client? And what kind of signs would they look for that this is going to be a good client they'd feel comfortable showing a house to?
I think it's important to remember that a lot of these interactions between realtors and a prospective buyer occurs when someone is simply driving through a neighborhood that they are attracted to and they see a sign that says open house, or they see a sign that says for sale, and it has the realtor's name and phone number, or the agency or the brokerage that they have. More and more and more, we see the influence of these realtors' pictures that are on these signs. And a lot of the times, the picture is a very glamorous appearing picture, whether it's an individual realtor, a female or a male, or it could be commonly now I've seen groups and teams used to describe this person or agency you're going to deal with. And then typically there'll be an agency phone number. Then sometimes there'll be the realtor's name and their cell phone number to be able to contact them directly. So I think that if you had two sides of the coin, if you had a preemptive phone call by a prospective buyer inquiring about a property, that's a great opportunity for you as a realtor, not only to qualify in your own way the person's viability to purchase that property financially or whatever, but I think it's an opportunity to then to kind of gain a little more information. What's your name? Where do you currently live? Are you in the area? And then start that dialogue with them, which may be revealing to you and may start a relationship transfer of information and be able to say at that point, I'd love to show you that property. Myself, my team, or my partner are available to take a look at that property. How can we make an appointment? And then once the appointment's made, then again, you could reference or say that my team or my group or my associate and I, perhaps, will be the ones meeting you today or showing you the property. So you're already instilling a sense of numbers. We say there is safety in numbers, and it's really true. So if you're a prospective buyer who is legitimate, there should be no objection to having one or two people there, or even being said that there may be one or two people there, which there may not be two, maybe just there is one. So I think the other way, the more unknown a situation occurs when you're having an open house and someone just drives by and you have the open house and that's your intent. You want to draw them in. You want to bring that prospective buyer in to look at that property. You know he's in the area or she's in the area. They're driving right by. So they stop and they get out and they walk up, knock on the door, and there you are. You're there. You're there. You have no idea who they are. You don't even know their name. They're going to give you a name, and they may be by themselves. They may be with someone else, or maybe a male and female. There may be children. Who knows? But what you do know is more likely than not, you're there by yourself. And I think that when you're there by yourself and you have these people approach you that have not been talked to, no dialogue with them, it's a little more uncomfortable because now you're having to assess that feeling of, are they a viable prospective client and will I be safe during this interaction? So I think that we can explore all of those issues today.
So far I've heard you say that maybe a way of setting a precedence for safety is for at an open house or on the phone call to mention the team, because there's safety in numbers, and that makes the realtor feel like they're more secure in their position. I think that's a really good idea. And so we do have, it takes lots of showings to sell a home. It takes open houses and showings. The statistics I'm finding are it takes between 10 to 25 showings to sell a home. And there were 4.62 million homes sold in 2024 in the US. So that's somewhere between 46 and 100 million showings that happen in the US every year. And each of these is an opportunity to have a safe and positive outcome. And each of them is an opportunity also for something that's not so in the realm of preparedness to happen as well. What is a good way for a realtor to feel prepared when they're doing a showing? Should they talk over with their team the policy for, should a realty brokerage have a policy for showings, for open houses, for phone calls, and should they talk over these safety practices together to help bolster the idea of safety and learn from each other?
Yeah, those are good points. Yes, brokerage firms and real estate agencies should have a policy-driven program that talks about the safety of their agents while they're alone showing a home. The agent needs to balance out the desire and need to sell the home and reflect for a moment on personal safety and on the risk that could occur. My realtor told me that she had a very suspicious person, a male. My realtor is a female, and came in the house and to show the house. It was an open house, and they just dropped in. And it was late afternoon, and they dropped in, and as soon as the person knocked on the door, the realtor opened it, the person came in, and then as soon as they did, the person turned around and locked the door behind them, which that, to me, is very concerning right off the bat. Why would you do that? Why would you lock the door? That's not good. That is not good at all. So my realtor simply politely moved around that person, unlocked the door, and then stood between the door and the prospective client. So there wasn't a way to leave if she needed to leave rapidly. So it's very important to if you can see someone approaching in a showing like that or an open house, you have a great tool in your cell phone. I suggest snapping a photograph of the vehicle and perhaps license plate of the vehicle that this person's driving. And there's nothing wrong with taking a photograph, if you can, of the person as they approach the door and knock on the door. And then I also like the cell phone of just staying on in a FaceTime scenario where you could put it in your pocket or you could have it in your hand. If you're feeling uncomfortable, I would use that cell phone as a tool, an instrument to let them know that our team is showing this house, and we're glad you're here, and welcome, and let's start this process going. In the back of your mind, you know that that entrance is where you came in and where they came in. What's the secondary entrance or exit? Have you thought about that? Is there a back door? Is the back door unlocked? Can it be easily accessed and exited in an emergency if you had to leave quickly and fast? Could you do it? If you can, that's great. So I think setting up those small things that are policy driven about here's how we show a house, here's the safety precautions that you should take, and then having that as a mandatory slideshow or presentation. We do these presentations to realtor groups, and we really enjoy it. And we talk about things that perhaps they don't think about. They don't think about personal safety that much. So I think that it's really smart to have a good policy about safety and showing safety for your staff and your realtors. And I think that technology is available also to help this happen. Like you said, they're showing more and more and more houses for sale, and each one of those opportunities has a certain risk component to it. How can you reduce that risk? And that's what we're talking about today.
Again, I just hear you saying there's safety in the numbers of your team, and using technology to stay connected to them can give them an idea of where you're at and how you're doing. And then also it can give you a tool to say to the client that you're showing a house to, oh, I'm just talking to my team right now. We are staying connected all day together. Nothing beats knowing your exits. In the story you told earlier, the woman got in a way where she could have an exit again. She saw, my exit is blocked. I need to fix that problem immediately. And she wisely made a way to give her exits. These would all be shown in these realtor safety courses. And I think I actually found some interesting statistics. For those of you listening, you won't be able to see what we're talking about, but we're going to start showing some graphs on the screen, and we'll explain them to you. But I found some statistics about realtor safety courses and general polls that realtors took to say which parts of their job they felt the most safe and the least safe in. So the first situation we have is the first slide we have is that this is a chart showing when realtors experience a situation that made them fear for their personal safety. This isn't a feeling of general unsafety. This is like your friend was talking about. I experienced something and I now feel unsafe. In an urban area, or a suburban area, there's between 21 and 23% of people that have experienced something unsafe in 2020. And in 2021, there's about 13 to 15% that feel that. First, let's talk about what is it that you think gives these differences from 2020 to 2021? Again, these are polls that people are taking based on their personal experience.
Well, I certainly think COVID had a big role to play. We were showing and selling more houses pre-COVID, and then after COVID, or during COVID, there was certainly less. So that's going to contribute to either a positive or a negative feeling or experience that a realtor may have had simply because of the numbers of the sales and numbers of showings that occurred. So more houses shown, more opportunities for uncomfortable feelings.
And in general, looking at this, the 25% of females had an experience that made them feel unsafe, and 15% of males had that same experience in 2020. And it's about the same distance away in 2021. So what extra steps should a female realtor take to feel more secure in the idea? What we're seeing in this data is that more female realtors are feeling unsafe. Is there anything extra they could do to help protect themselves?
I think, first of all, I think there's probably more female realtors, agents, than there are males. That's just my thought. So that could contribute to that. Females certainly have the same ability to sense and perceive, even more, I think, sometimes than men, about what feels uncomfortable, what doesn't fit just right. And I think that listening to that intuition is a really good thing. I think that from the beginning, sending the message that this isn't just me and you, this is my team or my group, and a legitimate buyer should have no problem with that. Why would they care if you're on a FaceTime call, or if you have someone monitoring this, or you're using an app that realtors can use that allow check-in and allow continuity of care? What difference would it make, right? So it shouldn't matter. Now, if certainly if you have someone and you say, look, great, I'm glad you're here. I'm just finishing up my FaceTime call with my group. Come on in. How are you doing? How's your name? And you put your phone in your pocket. That's going to set the stage right there that this is not a private meeting, that this is not a one-on-one where I'm about to close this door and be secreted inside this house. So a legitimate buyer or prospective buyer is going to be okay with that. And saying certain things to influence this person to feel like this is not as private as you think it. Yes, we're in a home by ourselves. Yes, the door's closed. Yes, there's multiple rooms. And yes, it's an unknown, really familiar home to me. But other people and other interests are also involved. So let's get on with business, and let's answer your questions, and let me do my job and show you around and tell you about this wonderful property. So I think there's a balance between safety and professionalism of doing their job, and I think that both are valid. But I think that the fear or concern comes in during these showings because you are alone, or sometimes you are. So I think that influencing people that you're not alone is a great step to set the stage for what's to come. And then as the interaction continues, then there may be modifications necessary about doing certain things. But I think that that's a real good starting point.
And this is just what you were talking about. This slide shows us that the situations in which realtors feared for their own personal safety were most during a showing. At 41% of people that said they were afraid, 41% said that's during a showing, I'm the most afraid. And 32% said, I'm most afraid when I'm meeting a client for the first time at a secluded location and property. Whereas when they're meeting them in public, only 8% of them are nervous about that. So there is something to the seclusion. You're right, that there's two people in a house together. And so having that whole thing of it's not just two people, it's me and my whole firm, and you, the prospective buyer, we're going to have a business relationship here, and that's that. I think that's a great way of setting the tone for the whole experience together. What else during a showing could they be thinking about? You mentioned previously looking for your exits. Could you tell us more about how you could casually just notice, maybe before the people get there, and then as you're working with them, how would you keep an eye on your exits?
I think that goes back to policy development and having a policy in your brokerage firm that talks about, look, here's the steps you need to take. Identify the locking mechanisms, identify an exit, identify that lock if you had to leave, familiarize yourself with the floor plan and layout of the property. Be sure and check in with a coworker or with someone like we talked about. We use an app that's available to realtors for checking in, and then make sure that while you're doing this showing, that whether it's in a downtown Houston high-rise or a farmhouse in the country somewhere, both of them become isolated, closed-in areas and present risk. So I think that following a checklist and following a reasonable pattern of policy about here's our safety protocols, following those I think it's a great idea. We teach that course. We teach that training. It's a PowerPoint-driven lecture, and I think that it should be mandatory for all realtors to have this training because it gives them that extra edge of being more comfortable during these showings when the data shows us that that's when it's most tense.
That's a really good idea too. All of these are about preparation can make you feel confident in these things. So the more prepared the brokerage is, the more prepared they can help their agents be. And vice versa. I imagine agents could talk to their brokerage about, I would like some safety training, and then the brokerage could help find resources for the agents. Why don't we go ahead and look at the next slide and see what else we have? Speaking of which, according to this study in 2021, 70% of realtors said they were unaware of a safety program at their brokerage. 30% said they are aware of that. And if we go to the next slide as well, it's interesting to me that 29%, that's almost all of them, took the realtor safety class. What that shows me is that if they're aware of it, most people are going to take the safety class. So how can a realtor working in a brokerage, how do they know if they've had a safety class before? How can they be aware that that's part of their training? Does my brokerage have a policy? How do you go about having that conversation with the brokerage?
I believe that in licensing process as a broker, there are small parts of that talk about safety and talk about showing. But I don't think it's enough. I think there should be a policy-driven plan within the brokerage that says, look, all of our new agents must take this 20-minute PowerPoint that we developed to talk about this, and then have an ability to ask questions and comment about it. And then I think it should be a recurring thing annually at least, where realtors and the brokers and all of the staff is reminded about these fundamental steps because they're very valuable and it's very simple to do. So I think that asking a question of your brokerage, do we have a safety program or is there one that you recommend that we take, and shouldn't we have one? And shouldn't we have consultants come in and talk to us about this? I think it's a great first step. Hire experts to come in and talk to a lunch and learn or talk to some in-service where you have all of your people there, and then be able to have a direct presentation about these topics. And then what's really important, I find, is that the question and answer session afterwards is really good because you can't predict some of these questions and you can't predict some of these scenarios that the realtors will tell you, one time this happened to me, or I heard about this happening in another state and a realtor was killed. And there are statistics certainly about realtors who are assaulted and who are sexually assaulted and who are injured or even killed in some of these scenarios. So it's serious business. And I think that we need to really look at this and help our realtors who are trying to help buyers and sellers, help them be more safe in what they do.
We also, at SAFESECURE 360, we help develop policy for companies as well. Could you talk a little bit about what a policy development might look like for a realty brokerage?
Policy development is critically important to be able to set the plan and set the roadmap as to, number one, we care about our realtors. We care about our agents. It's our top priority. And we want that sale, of course, but we also want you to be okay. And so I think that developing a policy about safety and showing and open houses and meeting clients and what to look for ahead of time, pre-meeting, what to look for during the meeting, and then what to look for during the departure. They're all three different phases. And then what happens if something goes wrong during the showing, or there seems to be some type of change in attitude or emotion, or there seems to be some type of threatening conduct or verbal threats that occur, and they do. Some of these realtors experience those over the phone where they haven't even met someone. My realtor told me a story about someone seeing her picture on a yard sign advertising the property for sale with her name and her cell phone number. And this unknown person called her cell phone number and said, "Hey, I'm asking about that property on so-and-so street. Are you the realtor?" "Yes, I am." Introduces herself, and then the next thing you know, this caller begins entering in a sexually explicit conversation with her, and it ends up being very graphic. So my realtor was disturbed and alarmed by it, and hung up on the person and blocked that call. It was from a number that she could see, blocked that call. So that's just an example of someone who is having behaviors that are inappropriate and attempting to reach out or influence or victimize someone over the phone. So think about the next step to that is in person. So you certainly want to avoid that. So I think that realtor safety training, although it may not be a top priority in the sales pyramid, I think it should be reexamined for validity. And I think that there needs to be something done before these incidents continue to occur.
I think this is a really interesting thing. It's not something that maybe every realtor thinks about. According to the statistics, not everyone thinks about it. But to me, it sounds like there are. You talked about a couple of realtors that are telling you these experiences that have actually happened to them, and I think it's something that is worth talking about. On this podcast, I like that we don't try to sensationalize or make people afraid. We try to talk as openly as we can about these issues and help them be prepared instead. Is there any final thoughts you have about preparing realtors or preparing brokers, or the idea of going through an open house, which is the most fearful time for these people? Are there any other ideas you have that you could share with the realty community?
I guess to summarize it, being in real estate is a tough business, and there's risks associated with it. I would ask my brokerage firm or whoever employs you, do we have a safety program beyond just what's required perhaps in licensing? But do we have an in-service active policy about safety? And if so, I'd like to attend that. And if we don't, can we develop one? Because it's going to reduce the risk, it's going to reduce loss, and it's going to reduce reputation impact for that brokerage firm if they do this, because they're going to educate their agents about what to do to remain safe. And they're going to use technology also with these apps and with these different phone applications that realtors have available to them, and including the team or group concept in the showing atmosphere, even if it's not actually there, may provide some additional benefits.
Well, thank you so much for these ideas. We hope that to all realtors, we hope that this helps give you a better preparedness for what you're going to do. You're going to show houses, you're going to sell houses. This is great for you, but having a plan before you do so is great too. So I want to thank Robert Henry. I'm Daniel Ziegler, and this is the SAFESECURE podcast. We are here at SAFESECURE 360. We are always available to talk to you about your questions or your specific needs. If you're a realtor or not, please go to our website at SAFESECURE360.com. This is the SAFESECURE 360 podcast. There is safety in numbers. Join us next week where we talk about mental health across all over the world and about rising violence all around the world, not just in the U.S. Thanks for joining us. There is safety in numbers. The information provided in our podcasts is for general information uses only and is not intended as legal advice. The views and opinions expressed by the guests are their own. Always consult with a qualified professional before making safety and security decisions. For more information about this topic, check out our website at SAFESECURE360.com.